Inflation rate now stands at 11.61% year on year. That's for the month of October. The figure is 0.36 percentage points higher than the 11.24% recorded the previous month. The Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation, showed that increases were recorded in all divisions that yielded the headline index. On a month-on-month basis, the headline index increased by 1.07%, 0.03 percentage points higher than the September's figure. The report also shows that the urban inflation stood at 12.20% in October from 11.78% in September, while the rural inflation rate now stands at 11.07% in October from a notable 10.77% as of the month of September. On a year-on-year basis, the composite food index rose by 14.09% in October, compared to 13.51% in September. Analysis of the report showed that all items less farm produce, which excludes the prices of volatile agricultural produce, now stood at 8.8% in the month of October. I have the Director General, now Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf, who joins me now via Skype to talk more and look deep down into what these figures mean for the ordinary, for the man on the streets. DG, it's great to have you join us on the show. Now, DG, if you can hear me, 11.61% is the figure released from the NBS. That seems to be on the high side. Looking at what we had for the month of September, 11.24%, the highest in 8 months.
It's something to worry about, although the increase is not as high as some of us expected, especially having regard to all the issues that we have been witnessing within the economy. But as you know, as we get towards the end of the year, as we get towards as we enter into the festive periods, demand generally increases, and that often have a way of fueling inflation. So we are likely to see the inflation rate trending even much higher by the time we see the next figures. Of course, there are quite a number of factors. There is the factor of the border closure, which has affected food prices significantly. Perhaps I think this will reflect even more by the time we have the next inflation numbers. There is also the factor of transportation across the country. The cost of transportation has remained a major problem across the country because of the state of the roads and all of that. So these are very challenging times, especially for the ordinary man, as you said, because income is not increasing and inflation is rising, which means that real income is actually dropping. So this is a major issue, at least for issues of poverty, for issue of the ordinary man. So we need to do something, urgently and drastically to ensure that the plight of the ordinary man doesn't get worse than what it is now.
DG, I know very soon, I think even the federal government implementation of the minimum wage is in the pipeline. I'm sure anytime soon, maybe some have even started receiving it. I think a state like Lagos has paid. They're talking about a new minimum wage. Now, what effect do you now see this also having on spending, general terms? What effect do you see this having on figures trickling in also from the NBS as we move on? You're saying we're going to have higher figures coming in.
Well, the effect will be an added pressure, an intensification of the pressure on prices. And if it continues this way, by the time the minimum wage is properly implemented, I'm talking now about the base rate of the minimum wage and also the consequential adjustment that is being debated or discussed both at the federal and state level. It's going to have very significant impact on prices because aggregate demand, at least in nominal terms, is likely to increase. And normally, there's also the psychology of those who operate in the market. Once there is an announcement of a review of wages, and there's also this psychological response of ensuring that prices generally increase, even if the real impact is not that much. So there's a psychological angle to it, then there's the money supply angle to it. So we are likely to see a significant impact in prices. So we take that together with the issue of the border closure, with the issue of the cost of transportation, with the issue of the flooding that we had across the country, which affected some farming communities. We are likely to see inflation getting close to 12% within the next 1 or 2 months, which again is not a good thing for us at all.
DG, I'm also worried. The increases were recorded in all divisions, like I highlighted in the intro to this discussion. For example, urban inflation, year on year, 12.20% at this time from 11.78%. Let's also look at rural inflation, 11.07% from 10.7%. It's all sectors. It touches everywhere. Why is it like this?
You know, some of these inflation drivers have systemic impact. So when you have an impact that is systemic, it will not be restricted to a particular geographical space or a particular product area. It will affect the entire country, and it will cut across all product segments. So what we are seeing is a systemic impact on prices generally. So I think that is why we have the kind of situation that we have. If you have things like transportation costs, for instance, it's almost it's a countrywide problem. You have issues of the border closure. The border closure, although initially affected the communities close to the border, but invariably it has also a systemic effect because it affects the general status of supply of some goods, particularly some basic food items. So we are seeing this because the effect is systemic, it's nationwide. So that is why it is affecting products, that is why it's affecting both the urban and the rural communities. And the thing to do in all of this is to go back to the issue of productivity within the economy. Unless we scale up productivity, unless we do what we need to do to create the environment for those who are producing things to be more productive, we continue to have this challenge. Because the issue now is that the productivity is low domestically, the demand is increasing, the imports are not coming in and all of that. So you have a whole lot of factors working against stabilizing prices. So I think the thing to do is to ensure that if we want to look inwards, we need to create the environment for the supply response to be prompt, to be effective, and to be robust.
DG,
so that it will help normalize the price situation.
DG, let's dwell down now to issue of border closure, which I know you've been talking about this, a lot of press releases, statements from the chamber, from you in regards to this. But many also on the other side have argued that there are a lot of positives in regards to closing the border. One example that I cite is the issue of petroleum products. We've seen a drop in when we talk about movement of products, usage and consumption on daily basis. Now, in your thoughts, what do you really think? What do you think should be done? Many say border closure, positives and negatives, and government believes that the positives outweighs the negatives at the moment. Do you agree?
I don't agree. I believe that the negatives outweigh the positives. First, let me pick on the example of the petroleum products. Ideally, if you are managing the system well, petroleum product export should be a major export for us as a country, as an oil-producing country. It should have been a major source of investment, a major source of foreign exchange earning, a major source of a whole lot of positive impact on the economy. I mean, we should actually be exporting petroleum products. We are an oil-producing country. So we need to remove the distortions in pricing. I know it may be difficult to do, but there's no running away from it. We are having this movement, so-called illegal exportation of petroleum products, because of the distorted price regime that we have. Otherwise, it should have been a very robust opportunity for investment. We are talking about exports. Rather than blocking exports, we should be encouraging exports. But you cannot encourage the export of petroleum products because we have a highly distorted market. So we need to correct that so that we can bring a lot more investment into the petroleum industry downstream, and should be able to even feed the entire West African sub-region with petroleum products. The impact on this economy will be very, very profound. Then talking about border closure, of course there are positives and there are negatives. But what we need to be looking at is what kind of sustainable solution are we putting on the table? This solution, as far as I'm concerned, is a bit simplistic. We should be looking at what are the factors driving the challenges that you have across the borders. What are the factors driving smuggling? What are the factors leading to trade diversion from Nigeria to Benin Republic? So we should be looking at issues like the state of our ports. Doing business in our port is one of the most expensive around the world. Even for those who are not smuggling, they find it more convenient to go through Benin ports and come to Nigeria. Not because they are smuggling, but because it is more efficient, it is more convenient. So we need to fix our ports. We need to also look at our tariff regime. Import tariffs in this economy is too high. We need to bring it down. If you bring it down, it doesn't mean that we are going to lose revenue. If anything, it will increase compliance. And we may even invariably have more revenue. And even some of these imports that are supposed to be used by those who are in production, it will bring down their cost of production. They'll be able to be more competitive. They'll be able to invest more. They'll be able to employ more people. So we need to look at all of this. We need to also look at using technology at our borders. You cannot close the borders perpetually. So we need to make the system more efficient. We need to get our scanners to work. We need to use drones if you have to use drones. There's a whole lot of technology that are being used in other parts of the world.
Indeed.
So we should be addressing fundamental issues, not fighting symptoms.
Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf, thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon.